Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always. What have you got for us this time?
Well, this time you've sent me a whole bunch of stuff on David Lynch. You know, the guy behind Eraserhead, Blue Velvet, Mulholland Drive?
Oh, wow. Those are some intense films.
Yeah, definitely not your typical Hollywood fairy. We've got excerpts from his book, Catching the Big Fish, some interviews, and a whole lot more.
Sounds like quite a mix.
It is, and what I'm really interested in is how it all connects.
Mhm.
His art, his meditation practice, and even his whole perspective on where ideas come from.
Yeah. I see where you're going with this. He's definitely known for a very distinct style.
To say the least. Surreal imagery, dreamlike sequences. And let's be honest, you often walk away with more questions than answers.
That's for sure.
But what's interesting is that he didn't start out wanting to make films. Nope.
Really?
He was a painter, totally immersed in the art world, but no real interest in film. In Catching the Big Fish, he talks about that.
Interesting. So what changed?
Well, it seems there was this, aha moment. He was in art school working on a painting of a garden at night,
Okay.
and he suddenly felt like it was moving, like there was wind rustling through the leaves, and it made him think, could film be a way to make his paintings move?
Wow. That's very Lynchian.
Totally. And from there, he just dove headfirst into filmmaking. He even describes his approach to life and art as the art life, which he gets from Robert Henri's book, The Arc Spirit. It's all about dedicating yourself to creative pursuits above everything else.
That makes sense. But I imagine that kind of dedication requires a lot of, well, uninterrupted time.
Oh, absolutely. And he talks about that. He mentions a painter he knew, Bushnell Keeler, who said you need 4 hours of totally uninterrupted time to get just 1 good hour of painting done.
Wow, 4 hours to get 1 hour of real work. That's a pretty intense ratio.
It is. And it made me think, what could we accomplish if we all had that kind of focus for the things we're passionate about?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Oh.
I know I could use a few more uninterrupted hours in my day.
Right. So how does Lynch find that kind of focus? Well, he's a big believer in transcendental meditation.
Oh, yeah. That's a key part of his whole, well, everything.
It is. But initially, he was pretty skeptical about the whole meditation thing.
Skeptical. Really?
He was. He talks about hearing the phrase true happiness lies within and being intrigued by it, but not really convinced. It wasn't until he actually tried TM that he had his big aha moment.
So what happened?
Well, his sister had been practicing TM for a while and called him one day. He could hear this, newfound happiness in her voice. So he decided to give it a shot. His first meditation sounds pretty intense. He describes it as, falling into bliss, almost like an elevator with a cut cable.
Whoa.
Yeah. But the crazy thing is, he says those 20 minutes felt like an instant. He was hooked from the start, and he hasn't missed a single meditation in decades, apparently.
That's dedication. I wonder what kind of impact that has on his creative process.
Right. Well, he talks about experiencing this, ocean of pure consciousness during meditation.
An ocean of consciousness.
Yeah, it's his way of explaining, I think, how we all have access to this deeper level of awareness and creativity. And he says it's through that ocean that he's able to catch bigger fish, his metaphor for ideas.
I like that. Catching bigger fish.
Me too. But it's not just about relaxation, right? He describes TM as a way to access a deeper level of consciousness, a place where negativity recedes and intuition flourishes.
It's like tapping into a wellspring of creative potential.
Exactly. And he even connects this to the idea of the unified field, a concept he gets from both modern physics and ancient Vedic science.
Okay, now that's where I might need a little help. The unified field. Could you break that down for me?
Sure. Think of it as a source of everything, the field from which all matter and energy emerge.
Okay, I'm following so far.
So Lynch seems to believe that by going inward through meditation, we can tap into this field and enhance our creativity. It's almost like there's this wellspring of potential within each of us just waiting to be accessed.
I see. So it's like dipping into the source of creation itself.
Exactly. Pretty mind-blowing, right? It's like the ancient wisdom of the Upanishads meeting modern quantum physics.
And Lynch is drawing the line between them through his experiences with TM.
Right. It's pretty fascinating stuff. But how does this play out in his creative process? Well, in Catching the Big Fish, he describes ideas as fish.
Fish?
Yeah. And he says that even the smallest fragment, like a scale or a fin, can hold more potential than we realize.
I think I get it. It's like even a tiny piece can unlock something much bigger.
Exactly. Like discovering a piece of the Rosetta Stone. A small fragment unlocks a vast and complex understanding.
Okay, that makes sense. So he's not waiting for these fully formed, amazing ideas to just magically appear.
Nope. He's paying attention to those smaller, seemingly insignificant sparks and seeing where they lead.
Interesting. So where do those sparks come from?
Well, he gives this great example from Blue Velvet. It started with these seemingly random fragments. Red lips, green lawns, Bobby Vinton's Blue Velvet playing on the radio,
Okay, I see where you're going.
and the image of an ear lying in a field.
An ear in a field. Of course.
That's all it took. Those fragments were like puzzle pieces, and once he had them, he was able to unlock the whole film.
I can see how that ties back to the unified field idea. It's like dipping into that wellspring of potential and finding the pieces he needs to build something bigger.
Right. And it's not just about visuals for him. He also talks about the importance of sound and music in his films. His collaboration with composer Angelo Badalamenti sounds, well, almost magical.
Yeah, I've heard about their process. They spend hours together, right?
Mm.
Trying to capture the right mood and feeling.
It's amazing. They sit at the piano, and Lynch tries to translate his feelings into music. Badalamenti plays, making adjustments based on what Lynch describes until they find the perfect sonic match.
So it's a very intuitive and collaborative process.
Totally. It's almost like a dance between two creative minds. Not about one person dictating, but a shared exploration until they find something new.
I love that.
Now, this brings us to another interesting point. Lynch is very much against using fear in the creative process, especially when working with actors.
Oh, that's intriguing. Why is that?
He believes fear constricts creativity. But a joyful, collaborative environment lets people do their best work. He talks about creating a space where everyone feels safe to experiment and share ideas.
Makes sense. And I guess that stands in stark contrast to his experience with Dune. He lost final cut on that film and felt like it didn't reflect his vision at all.
Yeah, it seems like a really painful experience for him. He compares it to a painter being forced to change the colors on their canvas. Creative freedom is super important to him.
I can understand that.
And this is where his perspective on film and technology gets really interesting. You might be surprised to hear he considers film to be dead.
Dead, as in finished.
Yeah. And he's a huge advocate for digital video. He even embraces that lower resolution aesthetic of certain cameras.
That's surprising, especially for a filmmaker known for his visuals.
I know, right? But it makes sense when you hear him explain it. He sees digital video as a tool that gives filmmakers more control, more flexibility, and ultimately more freedom to express their vision, without all the constraints and expenses of traditional filmmaking.
So it's about breaking free from those old structures.
Exactly. And it ties back to his whole art life philosophy, right? Making creative expression accessible to anyone with a story to tell.
I see. So it's not just about technology, it's about a whole approach to creativity.
Exactly. He even compares the lower resolution of some DV cameras, like the Sony PD-150, to the graininess of early films, saying it allows for a more subjective viewing experience.
Subjective. You mean it allows the viewer to bring more of themselves to the film?
Exactly. It's like he's inviting us to participate in the creation of the image, to fill in the gaps with our own imagination.
I like that. It's almost like he's challenging that idea that higher resolution equals better quality.
Right. Sometimes limitations can actually enhance the artistic experience, which is a very Lynchian perspective.
It is. Embrace the unexpected. Find beauty in the unconventional.
Exactly. And that leads us to some really intriguing details about his inspirations and creative process. For instance, the idea for Lost Highway came from his fascination with the O.J. Simpson trial and this concept called psychogenic fugue.
Psychogenic fugue. What's that?
It's a psychological condition where someone creates this alternate reality to escape trauma.
Oh, wow. I see where that could tie into Lost Highway.
Right. And then there's the casting of Frank Silva in Twin Peaks, which was a total accident. He was a set dresser who accidentally appeared in a shot reflected in a mirror.
Really?
Yep. And Lynch saw something in that fleeting image and was like, that's it. That's the character.
You've got to be open to the unexpected, I guess.
Absolutely. Now, this might surprise you, but he's actually quite optimistic about the future of film.
Optimistic.
Yeah.
Even with streaming taking over.
Yeah. He thinks sound will become even more crucial as screens get smaller.
Makes sense. As visuals get more compressed, sound can create that deeper sense of immersion.
Exactly. He sees filmmakers finding creative ways to use sound design to maintain the power of cinema, even on small screens.
It's about adapting, evolving, finding new ways to tell stories within this new landscape.
He even suggests that this shrinking screen size, combined with the growing importance of sound, could lead to a resurgence of radio drama.
Wow. A return to a purely audio-driven form of storytelling. That's fascinating.
It is. It's like coming full circle, returning to the roots of storytelling while embracing new technologies, finding that balance between tradition and innovation.
I like that. Finding the balance. So what about this consciousness-based education thing? He's really passionate about that, right?
Incredibly passionate. He's a huge advocate for bringing transcendental meditation to schools through the David Lynch Foundation.
He believes in the power of meditation to transform not just individuals, but also society as a whole, right?
Absolutely. He's seen firsthand how TM can reduce stress and violence in schools, leading to happier students and better academic performance. He talks about this principal, Dr. George Rutherford in Washington, D.C., who introduced TM in 3 schools that were struggling with a lot of violence.
And what happened?
The results were amazing. There was a huge reduction in crime, suicides, even overall violence.
That's incredible. It really shows you the potential impact.
Right. And it goes beyond just reducing negativity. Lynch talks about seeing a high school play at the Maharishi School in Iowa, which uses consciousness-based education. He was blown away by the students' performance, saying they had this, like, lively, glowing consciousness.
That's beautiful.
And it all ties back to his vision for peace, which might sound idealistic to some, but he genuinely believes that peace is achievable. It's not just a naive dream.
So how does he see that happening?
He believes that as more people cultivate inner peace through meditation, it creates a ripple effect, reducing negativity and violence in the world.
It's like that saying, be the change you want to see in the world.
Exactly. And he points to scientific research to support this idea. He talks about these peace-creating groups, small groups of advanced meditators who, according to studies, can actually reduce crime rates and violence in their surroundings just by meditating together.
Wow, that's powerful stuff. So what are your initial thoughts on all this? What's standing out to you?
I'm struck by how interconnected everything is. It's like there's this thread running through his art, his meditation practice, his philosophy of life.
It's like he's saying that our inner world and our outer world aren't separate. They're deeply intertwined.
Exactly. He's encouraging us to pay attention to those subtle connections, the little details, the unexpected things that happen. It's like he's saying, hey, look closer. There's magic all around us.
I like that. Look closer. There's definitely a sense of mystery and wonder to his work.
Absolutely. And I have a feeling there are many more treasures to uncover as we continue our deep dive.
Me too.
Oh.
Ready for part 2? What else have you got for us?
Okay, so you ready to go deeper into this Lynchian rabbit hole?
Lead the way. I'm fascinated by what we've uncovered so far.
Well, let's talk about something that I think gets at the heart of his aesthetic, his love of texture. He finds beauty in the most unexpected places, like even in things some people might find repulsive.
Repulsive? Like what?
Well, he talks about rotting bodies, aging buildings, stuff like that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. He sees beauty in the way nature reclaims and transforms things, like a decomposing organism.
Interesting.
He compares it to the beauty he finds in, like, aging buildings.
Yeah.
The way rust and patina create these intricate textures telling a story of time and change.
I see what you mean. It's like finding beauty in the decay, the impermanence of things.
Exactly. And it's not just about the visuals. It's about the stories those textures tell, the history that's embedded in them.
And that attention to detail extends to his films, right? The way he creates a sense of place.
Oh, absolutely. He talks about making a world feel real, even if it's surreal or dreamlike.
Yeah, like in Twin Peaks or Mulholland Drive. Those places feel so vivid, so lived in, even though they're strange and unsettling.
Exactly. It's like he's tapping into some collective unconscious, drawing on these archetypes and symbols that resonate on a deep level.
Yeah.
And then he uses sound so effectively to create this atmosphere of unease, of mystery.
Oh, yeah. That soundtrack to Twin Peaks. It's haunting. It stays with you.
Right. It's the whole sensory experience. And that brings us to another big theme in his work dreams.
Oh, yeah. He's often called a dream weaver, isn't he? Encouraging viewers to approach his films like they would a dream.
Exactly. To let go of logic and just allow themselves to be swept away by the flow of images and emotions.
I think that's what makes his films so captivating. They're like these puzzles you have to piece together.
Yeah.
But you never get all the answers.
Right. He doesn't want to spoon-feed the audience. He wants us to engage with the work, to find our own meaning in it, which I think is really empowering.
I agree. It invites you to become a co-creator in a way.
And this ties back to his practice of transcendental meditation, right? He talks about how it allows him to tap into this deeper level of creativity.
That ocean of pure consciousness where he catches those bigger fish.
Exactly. And it's not just about the quantity of ideas, but the quality. TM helps him to refine his ideas, to see them from different angles, to make those unexpected connections that spark new possibilities.
Hmm. So it's like the initial spark of an idea is just the beginning. The real work happens when he sits down to meditate and lets that idea unfold.
I think so. He says something like that in Catching the Big Fish.
It's like he's giving himself the space and time to go deeper, to explore all the facets of an idea.
And this applies to more than just his films. He talks about how TM helps him to navigate the challenges of everyday life with more clarity, calmness, and even creativity.
It's like that state of inner peace and stability allows you to approach any situation with more grace and resilience, whether it's a creative challenge or just, dealing with the ups and downs of daily life.
Exactly. And it's inspiring to see how he's using his platform to share this practice with others, especially through the David Lynch Foundation. Their work with veterans and at-risk communities is amazing.
It's a reminder that we all have the power to create a more peaceful world, starting with ourselves.
Okay, before we move on, I want to talk about something else that I think is really cool, his collaborations, especially with musicians.
Oh yeah, his work with Angelo Badalamenti is legendary. But he's also collaborated with a bunch of other musicians like Julie Cruz and even David Bowie.
And it's so much more than just, adding music to a film. It's like the music becomes another character, another layer of meaning and emotion.
Totally. Like in
Mhm.
Twin Peaks, that music is so integral to the whole atmosphere of the show.
Exactly. And he talks about how much he values trust and mutual respect in those collaborations. He's not a dictator, he's more like a facilitator, creating a space where everyone feels comfortable to share their ideas and push the boundaries.
And it's not just about working with people who already share his vision. He seems to really enjoy those unexpected collaborations, those moments when different perspectives collide and create something new.
Like, he talks about how working with Badalamenti helped him to understand the emotional power of music in a way he hadn't before.
Really?
Yeah. Badalamenti was able to take these really abstract descriptions of feelings and moods from Lynch and turn them into these hauntingly beautiful melodies, and they just perfectly complemented the visuals.
It's like they were speaking different languages, but somehow they were able to communicate on a deeper level, a level beyond words and notes.
Exactly. It's a beautiful example of how collaboration can lead to something truly unique and unexpected, something that neither person could have created on their own.
It's about finding that synergy, that spark of inspiration that happens when creative minds come together.
And it reminds us that collaboration isn't just about working together, it's about creating something greater than the sum of its parts.
I love that. It's like the whole becomes more than just the individual pieces.
Okay, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about something that often gets overlooked: Lynch's sense of humor. Yes, his films can be dark and surreal and even disturbing at times, but there's also this playful, absurdist humor running through them.
Oh, I totally see that. Like those quirky characters in Twin Peaks or the darkly comic moments in Blue Velvet.
It's subtle, but it's definitely there. It's like he's inviting us to laugh at the absurdity of it all, to not take things too seriously.
But it's a delicate balance, right? It's not about making light of serious topics, but more about finding that sweet spot where humor and darkness can coexist.
Exactly. And it's a reminder that even in the face of the unknown, the unsettling, the downright strange, there's always room for a little laughter. It's like he's winking at us saying, hey, it's not so scary after all.
It's like maintaining that sense of playfulness even when you're exploring some pretty intense stuff.
Right. It's a good reminder for all of us.
Now, speaking of intense stuff, we should talk about Lynch's fascination with the darker side of human nature. He's not afraid to go there.
Oh, absolutely. He explores themes of violence, abuse, psychological trauma. But I think it's important to remember that he's not doing it gratuitously or exploitatively.
Right. It's not about shock value. It's more about trying to understand the complexities of human experience.
Exactly. The light and the shadow, the beauty and the ugliness. He uses those darker elements to highlight the fragility of innocence, the vulnerability of the human psyche.
And the ways we cope with trauma and loss, like Dorothy Valens in Blue Velvet. She's a victim of abuse, but she's also this complex and resilient character.
And she finds a way to reclaim her power.
Right. It's a reminder that even in the darkest of circumstances, there's always hope for healing and transformation.
And I think it's this willingness to delve into the darkness, to explore those shadows, that makes his work so compelling. It's a reflection of the real world, right?
Totally. With all its complexities and contradictions. But it's also about recognizing that even in the darkest places, there's always that glimmer of hope.
Beautifully said. And it's interesting how he approaches those dark themes with a sense of detachment, almost like a scientist observing a specimen under a microscope.
He talks about letting the characters do the suffering while he remains the observer, the orchestrator of the experience.
It's like he's trying to understand it from a distance, to create a safe space for exploration without becoming consumed by it.
Which is where his meditation practice comes in, right?
Exactly. He believes that TM gives him the clarity and the equanimity to navigate those difficult themes without getting lost in them.
It's like finding that balance between engagement and detachment, between empathy and objectivity.
And it's about trusting that even in the midst of all that chaos, there's an underlying order, a sense of meaning, a beauty waiting to be revealed.
And it's about embracing the full spectrum of human experience,
Hmm.
the light and the shadow, the joy and the sorrow. It's about finding our own way to make sense of it all.
Which brings us back to that central message. True happiness lies within. It's something he talks about a lot, and it really permeates his work.
It's about recognizing that happiness isn't something we find out there in the world. It's something we cultivate within ourselves.
And it's about finding peace in the chaos, beauty in the unexpected, meaning in the journey, no matter how surreal or challenging it might be.
It's a powerful reminder that we have the power to create our own reality, to shape our own experiences, and to find joy and fulfillment right here, right now.
Okay, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to touch on one more thing. His characters. They're so memorable and often, well, disturbing.
Oh, yeah. Think about Frank Booth in Blue Velvet or Bob in Twin Peaks. Those are images that stay with you.
He has this amazing ability to create characters who are both larger than life and deeply human, flawed, complex, capable of great love and terrible violence.
It's like he's holding a mirror up to society, reflecting back our own anxieties and fears, our darkest impulses and our hidden desires. And he does it with this touch of humor, this absurdity that makes it all the more unsettling.
It's like he's saying, hey, look at yourselves, you strange and wonderful creatures.
It's a reminder that we're all capable of great good and great evil. We're complex beings, and there's often a fine line between sanity and madness.
I think there's a connection there with his practice of transcendental meditation. He says that TM allows him to access this deeper level of consciousness, a place of stillness and clarity.
Maybe that allows him to observe the full spectrum of human behavior with this sense of detachment and non-judgment, to see those common threads that connect us all, even in our darkest moments.
And that's a profound and humbling perspective. Okay, so are you ready for the final part of our deep dive? I think it's time to try to tie all these threads together.
Absolutely. I'm ready to see what we discover.
All right, so here we are, the final part of our deep dive into the world of David Lynch. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a little like I just stepped out of one of his films.
Yeah, a little bit off kilter. Like
Yeah.
I need a cup of coffee and a slice of cherry pie to ground myself.
Haha, exactly. It's a lot to process, all this stuff about his creative process, his fascination with dreams, his dedication to meditation, his vision for a more peaceful world.
It is. And what's really striking me is how it all seems to connect. Like, his art isn't separate from his philosophy or his meditation practice. It's all woven together.
Right. He's not just a filmmaker. He's a philosopher, spiritual seeker, an advocate for peace. And it all comes through in his work, you know?
Yeah, and he's not afraid to challenge conventions, to push boundaries, to make you think, what is going on here? But he does it all with this, like, playful energy that makes you want to go along for the ride.
It's true. He's like, come on, let's explore the unknown together. Let's see what's lurking in the shadows. But he's also saying, don't be afraid. There's beauty to be found here, too.
Exactly. I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is this idea of authenticity, staying true to yourself, even when it means being different, challenging the status quo.
Yeah, he's definitely not afraid to be himself, flaws and all.
And that's what makes his work so relatable, I think. He's not trying to be perfect or please everyone. He's just being David Lynch.
Speaking of which, there's this great story in one of the interviews about when he met Federico Fellini, one of his filmmaking idols.
Oh, wow. That must have been incredible.
Apparently, Lynch was shooting a commercial in Rome and got to meet Fellini shortly before he passed away. He describes it as this, like, warm and insightful conversation, just listening to Fellini talk about the golden age of cinema.
Wow. What a moment for him. Like a passing of the torch from one master of surrealism to another.
Right. It shows how important it is to honor your influences, to learn from the people who came before you, and then to, carry on that legacy in your own way.
And to find your own voice within that lineage. I like that.
Oh, and there's another story I wanted to mention about this German carpenter named Günther, who Lynch really admires. Günther works exclusively with hand tools.
Yeah, yes, I remember reading about him. Lynch describes his work as magical.
Exactly. And I think it speaks to this idea of craftsmanship, of dedicating yourself to your craft, of mastering your tools, and finding joy in the process of creation.
And finding beauty in the simple things, right? In the details.
Yes. It's all connected, isn't it? So I guess what are we left with after this deep dive? For me, it's a sense of wonder, a sense of possibility, and a reminder that creativity can truly transform our lives and the world around us.
I agree. It's been an amazing exploration, a journey into the depths of human experience, and an invitation to embrace the unexpected, the surreal, the profound.
And to remember that true happiness lies within, that creativity is a lifelong journey, and that peace is possible if we're willing to cultivate it.
Beautifully said.
Well, it's been a pleasure diving into this with you. And to our listener, I hope this has inspired you to explore the world of David Lynch. Who knows what creative depths you might discover within yourself. Thanks for joining us.